Good evening. It is 6:30, September 24th, and this is the Olentangy Board of Education regular meeting. We are at Olentangy Administrative Offices in the Berlin Room. Mrs. Hatfield, will you please call the roll tonight?
Mr. King,
Present.
Mr. O'Brien,
Here.
Mrs. Patrick,
Here.
Mrs. Fiesel,
Here.
and Dr. Weiss.
Here.
Thank you.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll now entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Fiesel,
Yes.
Dr. Weiss,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
and Mrs. Patrick.
Yes.
Thank you.
Tonight we have 3 presentations on our agenda. The first one is Lori Carter Evans. She is our Director of Transportation. I thought she's here. Oh, she's behind the pole. I can't see her. Mrs. Evans, welcome.
Thank you. Let's see. Well, it gives me, good afternoon, first of all. Good evening.
Evening.
So it gives me great joy and pride, of course, every year to talk to you about the Department of Transportation. Last year, our theme was, we're on the move. And this year, our theme is, we are on the road again.
Oh,
And like everyone, we've implemented many changes. There were challenges, and some people, felt the challenge, and we feel that we never really stopped. While some people felt that they stopped, we felt that we just continued moving, and we simply resumed. So tonight, I'm going to provide you with an overview of our safety measures and what we did to enhance our safety for all of our students and our drivers on the school bus. I will also talk to you about a couple of initiatives that we carried over from last year and new initiatives for this year. I will also give you a little bit of information about our routing and ridership, and then take your questions. So, of course, as you know, before students ever enter a school bus or school building, they must follow safety procedures at home, and so their parents are required to conduct an evaluation, a health assessment prior to entering the school bus or even going to the bus stop. So our drivers are also doing the same. We also will make sure that our drivers and our students are wearing face masks before they enter the bus, and they hand sanitize on our buses. And each bus is equipped with a hand sanitizer, as shown here. All students are also assigned to a seat. And we always did this in the past where we assigned students to seats, but this year it's across the board. And all students understand that, and it makes it easier for drivers, of course, to get to know students earlier on. It also prevents all the movement back and forth on the bus or anybody who's searching for a seat as they board the bus. Over the summer, too, we did, back in May, we had all of our drivers come in to do a deep cleaning of our buses and also to disinfect the buses before they were even parked. So this year, as the buses are out there on the road, we have our drivers who are spraying our buses between each route. And that means before they arrive at each school, they will spray and disinfect their buses. So after each student load, the drivers go through the bus and they spray and they disinfect. After the routes in the morning, the high-touch areas are cleaned on the bus. So that includes the tops of the seats, and also the handrails and the driver's area. So that bus, when it's parked, we're able to have the disinfectant sit on the bus, and it'll dry before the students arrive in the afternoon. So continuing with our safety measures, this year we had a fun activity. We decided, because we don't want to put everybody in the building, we decided to have an all-outdoor professional development day. So Monday this week, the 21st, all of our drivers sort of practice in a safety rodeo. It's spelled rodeo because, of course, it's a rodeo on the road in the bus. So it's sort of a competition, so each driver practiced some maneuvers where they even took their bus and they snaked it through a sort of a serpentine kind of design, which they practiced their skills in trying to keep the bus going around objects. And this helps with reducing accidents. It helps increase their skills. So it's twofold. It's for teamwork and also for safety. We gave them a written test to test their knowledge on the bus and on safety procedures. And we also set aside a bus where our mechanics purposely put defects on the buses so the drivers could compete and find those defects. So we plan to continue that every year. What it does also is there is a regional and state rodeo, and if our drivers do pretty well at our mini bus rodeo, we think they'll do well in the overall competition. So, and we hope to be accident-free, so. This year, we also purchased a lift van. This is our first, and what we can do with this van, of course, we're prepared to transport students in a wheelchair if it becomes necessary, and we actually did put this lift van into service this year. So we're proud to say that we do not have to hire somebody outside, but we can actually transport our students ourselves in this lift van. So hopefully you'll see more of this in the future. And continuing along the lines of our school bus safety, we have every year the School Bus Safety Week, and that takes place the third full week in October. This year the theme is red lights mean stop. So we are going to have safety messages that our dispatcher shares with our drivers each day. Typically we have an evacuation drill that we have for all of our students. We decided that we would do that instead in the spring when we have all of our students on a 5-day schedule. You may recall last year we talked about a parent app, and we are still pursuing this. We were in the testing phase back in the spring, so because we closed down, we did decide to, of course, we couldn't test this. So we will start testing again at every elementary school so that we can get the parent app up and running. Also, there is a device or a new program called eLink, and that allows us to communicate with our non-public parents and students. They do not have Power School access, so this will allow us to push messages out to them. If we have a delay, if the school is closed, we'll be able to get that message out to parents. So new this year is our digital library. We are trying to build a place for drivers to get their training online as much as possible. We give it to them, of course, physically so they can drive the bus, but then there's a lot of information that we do have, so now we're going to allow them to go through the computer and find some of these videos that are helpful. We also shared these videos with them in August. This one happens to be a picture of the railroad video. You can't really see the driver there, but the driver's driving and then talking through what is happening at the time when she approaches the railroad crossing. This also, again, helps with accident prevention. Any videos that we do, it's always about safety. So, and we also have a video that we put together for students that we're going to release to the schools soon. So you'll start to see more and more videos in transportation where hopefully we'll have videos for parents, for anybody that comes to the district that needs to know about transportation. So some videos are for internal use and some will be for external use. So routing and ridership. So this summer we decided that we would go ahead and route for a full day schedule. Our intent, of course, was to transport students for 5 days. So we did that. So whenever it was time to go into the hybrid schedule and split the students, we were able to do that with the A-B day, still keeping the same route intact, it's just split into 2. So that's been successfully done. And if we resume, when we resume, we'll be able to put routes together with some lead time, of course, because we're getting to the point where we are consolidating some of our routes. So we're looking at our ridership, we're looking at our staffing, and we do have some challenges right now because some drivers, they do have family members who are vulnerable, medically vulnerable, so they're not able to continue with us. So currently, we're experiencing some vacancies that we didn't have before. So we are looking at the routes to look at the ridership. We're light on the high school, so in some of those areas, we're able to consolidate those routes and have a little bit of a reduction so that we can make up for the drivers who have resigned. Also, what takes place in October, the first full week in October, we conduct our T1 state student counts. And also, we record the bus mileage, and then we report that to the state. When we do our student counts, that will give us the real number that we have. We believe that we have about 75% of what we typically transport. When we asked parents to register for busing, we had 22,000 responses, which was good. We know that some were repeated responses, but we have 19,000 students who are eligible for transportation. So out of that 19,000, typically around 10,000, 11,000 students ride. And that's what we're seeing right now. When we look at the number of students that we have routed, it's about around 11,000, where about 8,800 of those 11,000 ride the bus currently. So we do expect that to also increase. And lastly, just wanted to share that we have a Transportation Employee of the Year. However, he wasn't able to return to us this year due to health concerns. And so we knew that, and his wife works at Olentangy Meadows, so Olentangy Meadows made a yard sign, and we did a little parade over to his house, took the bus, van, some drivers drove their cars, and presented him with his award. So that was part of our teamwork as well. So, and with that, as I said, we're on the road again, and if you have any questions, I'll take those.
Could you, go ahead. Describe what the one slide mentioned, video for elementary students. Describe what they're seeing, what they're hearing.
Well, what that will do is we give them the pointers on what to do when they approach a bus, how they're supposed to line up, how they're supposed to board the bus, wear their masks, and we already have that video made, but we just haven't released it yet. Everything that we expect from them on a bus, how they are to stay seated on the bus. It's focused mainly on loading and unloading.
Okay.
That's when most nationally accidents happen, when they're loading and unloading. So we show them how to board the bus safely and where to stand when they are released from the bus. So everybody has a designated place of safety called DPS, and they have to stand in that designated place of safety when they leave the bus, and so that the bus driver can see them. Also, it tells them how to watch for the driver's hand signals to cross the bus if they are not door side when the drivers drop them off. Also tells them about needing to be quiet on the railroad as the bus crosses the railroad tracks and that kind of thing. So we use Buzzy the bee for the bus and Ollie the owl for the students.
This year, we asked students, do you want to ride or not? Can we do that going forward? Are we allowed to do that going forward just to make people commit? Because I hear so many times, well, this bus is only half full. Well, we plan for the students to ride the bus, but we've never asked them before if they want to ride the bus.
And we would love to. We would love to continue this, and there were some good things that came out of this. And so asking for students to register helps us to plan better.
Yeah.
We can be more efficient, our routes would be better, we would know exactly who's riding, we would know our high school students, how many will ride, and we would know that in advance, know how many are gonna park at the school. All of that would go into our route planning.
I have a question. It's basically some comments that I've heard around transportation, of which my kindergarten bus driver was allergic to noise. We weren't even allowed to, so these kids, they're being chauffeured nowadays, so. But I know that the loading in the schools is taking longer because the kids have to be distanced as they go into the bus pickup. So are our routes still running slower than normal? Because they usually start off a little bit slow at the beginning of the year, and then everybody falls into the routine, and, you know, the arrival home is as predicted. Have we had to adjust for that this year?
So actually, because of the smaller number of students, because we have the A and B day, we were able to pretty much keep to the schedule. So when students are separated at the schools and we're loading slower, we actually, on the first day of school, we were finished before 5 o'clock, which is, we always shoot for 5 o'clock to, finish for the day, making sure kindergartners are on the right buses and all of that. So we did reach that goal, and now we're managing to finish by about 4:46. So exactly 4:46 instead
that
of about.
normal?
That's good. That's earlier than normal.
Okay.
So, and some of the drivers are finding that because some of the students aren't riding, they are maybe getting to the stop sooner. So, but we tell them, of course, we don't want them to get there too early because maybe parents aren't there, but in some cases, parents are. But those are things that cause us to consolidate the routes. So it's not as slow as in the afternoon. It's not. In the morning, it's not as slow. We have more time in the morning, but the afternoon is more. There's a time constraint because of the times that we
Right.
release. However, we've managed to make that and manage it.
Well, and that brings me to my next question about, you've said you were able to consolidate some routes. I know last year you were able to do that as well as we were growing, but you still managed to, was it 147?
We actually have 156 routes. We had 156 last year. This year, we're in the process of consolidating. We did consolidate one so far this year, and we're looking at other ones that we'll be able to do.
Great. And I no longer have a bus rider, but I'm been very excited if we could register our bus riders and kind of, cut down on any unnecessary routes. So thank you. Anybody else have any questions?
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure it was a puzzle this
Yeah.
year, to say the least. And now we have joining us Mr. Todd Meyer. He is our Chief Operations Officer, and you have some staffing updates for us.
I do. Good evening. I do want to thank Lori for her leadership. How long have you been back? 4 years?
3 in February
Coming up. So, and she has done an outstanding job and continues to look at, on the operations side of the district, the efficiencies and how we can be more efficient while providing quality customer service. So would like to thank her for her leadership. And with staffing, hey Dustin, do you have that? Oh, I have it.
He's just as talented as with me as I.
I thought it was going to come up first, and then I started clicking. So just as any year in Olentangy, we're always extremely busy staffing for the upcoming year. And this year has been no different with the exception of a pandemic. So we have really worked hard to meet the needs of not only obviously in school, but staffing the CDL program as well. So we meet with our department once a week, and we really talk about, Mr. Rafe had talked about the words caring, and Mrs. Patrick has as well, grace, patience. In our department, obviously, we talk about those words as well, but also adaptable, pivot, agile, service, all while remaining positive with a smile because of all of the fluidity of the situation going through the spring and the summer. And our staff has been amazing, really servicing the district. So I wanted to start off with some highlights and challenges going into this year. First, I have the Columbus CEO Magazine 2020 Top Workplace Honor. So this is actually the third time that we've received this honor. So obviously we were ecstatic the first time, but to receive it 3 times, that really says a lot about the district and how we work with our employees. And if the survey really consists of alignment, so alignment, mission, vision, is the district going in the right direction, connection, engagement, leadership, those components, and we send that survey out to all of our employees, and then we have to have a certain percentage complete in order to qualify. So we are extremely proud, again, to receive that for the third time here at Olentangy. Also, I put this up there because we work with our associations, and Mr. Rafe always talks about the quality partnership that we have with our associations, and we do a really good job of keeping that rapport and positive relationship with our associations. So to have zero grievances, and really this is, in my tenure in this position, we have had zero grievances since I started in 15, 16. But really, and it's because we do such a good job of managing the contract, working within the contract, communicating, and working with, in partnership with our associations. So to me, I've been in 5 districts, and that's a really good metric that we use in the HR department. Obviously, diversity recruitment strategies and staffing results, and I'll show you the results here in a minute for this year. And I know I gave a long presentation about a month ago to the board, but obviously we're committed to bringing top quality diverse candidates into the organization, and we continue to work on that. One of our, I think, pride and joys in our district is our certified interview day. And last year, we have it every year in March, typically at Liberty High School, where we bring in between 160 to 170 candidates to interview. Now, obviously, this past year, we had to cancel that, but we were still able to do that. We conducted over 165 virtual interviews, because that really helps us along the line with our job fairs to set the table for putting some quality candidates on our A-list that we can put in front of principals. Also, we started this a couple years ago with our classified job fairs in conjunction with streamlining that with the communications department to get candidates in here, because we have to continually promote job opportunities in our classified ranks for substitutes and even filling vacancies, because that continues to be a challenge for us to for sure keep qualified substitutes. And the level of high quality and efficient service, and again, I just want to commend my department, because we did a stat, and I said since 2005, we've added 1 support staff in my office. So that's 15 years. We've added 1 support staff. And during that time, we've increased by almost 1,500 staff members with more demands placed on the compliance issues that we have to follow. And the ladies come to work every single day to serve. And it's amazing the quality work that they do and the level of service that they provide. So those are some highlights. Obviously, the challenges are going to go into the COVID-19 pandemic and really pivoting to staff the CDL program with over 5,200 students enrolling in the program. So we staffed 238 in the committed distance learning program. And then there was a dynamic, because while staffing that, it does have impact on at the building levels with the process that we work through. So we ended up 300 plus certified teachers transferred in some capacity in the district, whether it was grade level from 3rd grade to 1st grade, whether it was 7th grade to 6th grade, or it could have been to another building or to CDL. So we obviously managed and worked through that in the summer to get that staffed. And while also, again, going back to the partnership we have with our associations, continuing great communication and collaboration with our associations, especially with OTA there. And we were impacted with COVID-19. We had some late resignations, which, depending on the licensure area, presented a challenge for us. Substitute shortage, that's going to be an issue for all districts across the state. We're fortunate right now because some districts are all remote. So of the subs in the pool, which is down 30% from last year at this time, So of the subs in the pool, we still have a good opportunity for those subs to work at Olentangy, because as you know, we belong to the ESC, and substitutes can work. I think they have close to 30 school districts in that consortium where they can work in any of those school districts. So we're going to continue to monitor that. Right now, good news is that our fill rate's been 100% first 3 weeks, and our staff attendance is averaged 97.5% over the first 3 weeks of school. So that's good news. Obviously, we'll continue to get in the year, and we'll see how that goes. Another thing, as far as creating and just being part of the solution, typically we have, and I talked about this last year, when we do our onboarding and orientation, we have an initial orientation before New Teacher Network here in the building. We couldn't do that this year, so we designed that virtually, and we did that in small groups virtually. I think we ended up having 6 or 7 sessions with our new staff this year, so it worked out really, really well. And going into our recruitment and hiring, human resources, these are some strategic actions that we look at. We continue to look at how we're recruiting in the district. And I always say this, one good thing that we have in Olentangy is our reputation. We have a great reputation across the state, and that remains strong. But one thing, our human resources recruitment material, so you guys, I put a packet on your, right in front of you. And so as we worked with the new brand and we rebranded Olentangy, then obviously we wanted to adapt from the HR department. So we've come a long way, actually, and we put these couple pamphlets as well as this bookmark in there for candidates. And just one feature, if you open the human resource one, a good feature is that QR code, because if you just put your camera from your phone on that QR code, it goes right to our application, and then they can fill it right out. And then obviously, our quality profile, this is last year, so we'll update it for this year, and we'll put a new one in for this year. But if you look, it's to my right into the back of the room, that's a typical setup at a job fair. And it's typical with the table and the setup. Most of the time, we have 2 or 3, because we have a lot of good responsive candidates who sign up. So this is Chris's idea to set this up. So I wanted to set that up. But we've come a long way again in 5 years, because I don't know if you remember, I report out, when I first showed up on the scene, we had a table with a vinyl plastic Olentangy sign that we take the job fair. So anyways, that really gives us a great presence at the job fairs. And again, on that table, there's a QR code too, that because when we go to a job fair, our slots fill up real quick. So we can't interview everybody. So what we implemented this year is they can hit that QR code and fill out their information, name, graduation, obviously most of them are graduating that year, their licensure, any endorsements, and their interest in Olentangy, because then we can still take them to our application and get them in maybe for a screening interview in our office, or sometimes at the building level. And then I already talked about our certified interview day. Diversity recruitment efforts, again, we're extremely pleased with what we were able to yield this year with our diversity hiring, and I'll show you those percentages here in a minute. Another quality thing, and this is, I talk about this every year, but sometimes because we're so competitive to get a job here, and if we only have, for example, 1 vacancy at 4th grade, we may have 4 or 5 that we could give that job to. So we encourage candidates to stay around in the district and to sub in our district. And it's an opportunity, obviously, to do a good job, and really, it's on-the-job training if you do a good job subbing. So we were able to, we hired 22% of our new hires from our substitute pool list and 70% from our A candidate list, which is, again, we have over 5,000 applications in our system. So obviously, going through all of those applications is a daunting task. So we really try to do some good things up front to create that list to give to the buildings to bring candidates in for interviews. You guys always like to see this number. This year, between certified and classified, we had 17 of our new hires are Olentangy graduates. And that percentage at the bottom, and again, this is a testament to the quality work of my office in really continuing to make Olentangy how big it is feels small when we welcome and onboard our new staff members. So we're really pleased with those ratings of 97% with the onboarding process, which is all electronic now, and then our certified orientation, which is pretty much the first acclimation or experience with Olentangy. So new staff members employed, administrators 8 this year, 60 certified teachers, 135 classified. And remember, classified always starts kind of last year because we hire classified all year. It's a dynamic process. We're a lot of times, because we have turnover sometimes in the classified ranks, that we continue to hire across the year. So that's why that number is pretty large there. And that also includes food service. The food service personnel aren't technically in our 5-year forecast because they're funded, but we do obviously onboard and hire the food service candidates. Administrators 13% diverse, and in the middle 17% diverse for certified, and that's our highest number since we've started keeping this data point in Olentangy. So again, it's progress. We know we continue to have work to do, and we're going to continue to work on attracting top quality diverse candidates, and we have a strong commitment to bring them into the district. And then our classified diverse percentage is 9%. There's the breakdown with Olentangy graduates, and again, we, at the bottom there, 25% promoted from within, because if we do see obviously talent within the organization, whether we encourage them to go into administration or they go into administration and then apply for jobs, we do like to see those individuals getting promoted. And then this is just a little quote I put over there. You can read that from orientation, and this is a sentiment. We get a lot of these types of this type of feedback in our survey when people come into the district, because again, we do such a good job of making big feel small and welcoming staff into the district. Resignations and retirements. So we had 5 administrator resignations, 26 certified, and 11 retirements, and then the classified numbers. We started a couple years ago, and this is another recommendation from the diversity committee of doing an exit survey. So I think we're 3 years in with our exit survey. So what happens if we get a resignation or retirement, that immediately goes out to the individuals. Not, obviously it's voluntary for them to fill it out. But we're really pleased with our numbers, because when we do the national benchmark metric that we got from Hanover Research, in our industry, the return rate on the exit surveys in education is like 14%. So again, we're pleased with those results that we get. And then obviously it gives us information on the back end of somebody leaving, that obviously feedback of things we do really well, or in feedback of things that we can improve. So overall, always talk about the budget. 31 of the 60 new certified teachers were hired for growth. The average new teacher experience is 3.9. The metric that we use for hiring in the 5-year forecast is a master's step 3 at 54. So again, this year we came under that budget metric at an average of 52,653. Staffing totals graphed it out for this year. So administrators, we have 114 FTE, 115 total. Same thing with certified, 1,445 total. That's FTE, but bodies, 1,472. So the reason why we have some half-time FTE teachers who are half-time. Classified staff to date is 859. We employ 201 ESC employees, and those are preschool mostly, and then our support services, OTs, PTs, school psychs. And then, so total staff members, 2,647, which, what's that make us still in Delaware County, as far as?
Oh, the second largest employer?
Second largest in Delaware
Chase.
County. Certified substitutes, I have that number on because that's down 30%. So 759 in Actually, I talked to Krista today about sending a blast email out to our whole listserv, because in order to sub, you need a college degree. So we may have a lot of people in the community who have a college degree that may want to sub in the schools, so we're gonna send that out next week. And then our classified substitutes, 355, and actually, we've really worked hard to continue to increase that number, because that's the one area in the organization, it's hard. It's hard to bring our classified substitutes in those jobs. And then we started doing this a couple years ago. We wanted to break our teaching staff over years of experience. So this is pretty interesting. You can see 1 to 5, 6 to 10, and obviously 31. So you can see we're still relatively low, heavy at the bottom of the scale and lighter at the top. But what I'll start to look at is how that shifts
Yeah.
now over time. Because obviously, you know, as teachers get to the right of the scale and more years of experience, we pay them a lot more. So the total, and right now, so the total average years of experience, 13.96 in the district. Any questions?
I have a few. Anybody else? Okay, well, just for clarity, because this did come up in some emails over the summer, women are not considered diverse candidates, correct?
Correct.
Okay, that did come
Yes.
up. I just wanted everyone to be very clear. The other
Correct.
thing, and I was going to mention this in my board president's report, but Julie and I were fortunate enough to attend the State of the Schools, and all 4 superintendents and the Career Center superintendent were there. And they all said what you've shared with us tonight, that substitutes in every aspect are hard to come by. Custodians, they're needing more shifts, that's a struggle. Bus drivers and teachers and classified aides and things like that. So I know that, you know, I was going to ask if during your job fair or anything like that, that you covered how to register with the ESC. I've heard it's a daunting task.
It is.
It is.
And it's really frustrating, like, could we have a webinar where we take people through? And one of the areas that's confusing is you have to have your background check to start it, but yet you don't. So I know that that's one of the areas of concern, and I didn't know if we had any kind of webinar or we did that at the job fair with people to help get them into that sub-pool.
So for certified, they're by the ESC, classified, they're Olentangy employees. So at our job, our classified job fairs, absolutely. Now, our supervisors will invite people, like they'll have groups of people and they'll help them with the paperwork. So they actually, because some people aren't as computer savvy and they haven't gone through platforms like that, so we work with them and they come in and we do it with them. The ESC, in my office, Sarah Sanzoni works with our subs, so she's really hands-on with the subs, but there's something maybe we can do maybe collaboratively with the ESC, because you're right, sometimes we get that feedback too. But typically, when we get that feedback, we work with the ESC and that individual and are able to work it out.
And do you think that our sub-pool could be down because parents are staying home with their
Oh, yeah.
students on the off day?
Oh, absolutely.
That's what I would think would be the largest.
That, or just
Health
don't want to come into the
reasons.
environment.
Right.
Yep, absolutely.
Does anybody else have any questions? No? Thank you. I
Thanks.
know, but
Okay.
based on those numbers, your department has been very hard at work.
They
It's-
have.
As well with 300 people changing positions.
Yeah.
That's- And all those new hires, thank you for that. Our third presentation this evening is an overview of the state report card. And please welcome Jeanette Kenny. She is our Director of Data and Continuous Improvement. Welcome.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. So we're going to share with you a little bit today about the state report card and kind of what we know as far as what's going to happen this year. So before we get to the state report card, we know that we use that as one metric on how we're kind of evaluating how we're doing academically and in other areas of the district. But we also have our own continuous improvement plan that we include additional metrics to see kind of how we are performing and different areas that we can improve. So This is kind of a quick run through of our continuous improvement plan. Many of these benchmarks we will not be able to measure for this past school year because of the cancellation of state testing. But we will compile a kind of limited annual report as we have in the past with the measures that we can calculate. And then we will keep the same continuous improvement plan for this school year so that as we get additional data, we can continue to measure ourselves on these additional metrics, including the community and the financial side of things. So onto the state report card. It looks very different than it has in the past, with a lot of NRs all over the board. Because of all the state testing that was canceled and legislation that was put into place in the spring, it was said that there could be no grades and no rankings on any of the report card, even with the measures that we could calculate and have data for. So you will see this in all districts across the state, that everyone is just an NR. The three measures usually that we have the most data for and we talk a lot about are achievement, gap closing, and progress. All three of these measures are based on Ohio state tests that happened in the spring, and since they did not happen this past spring, none of these three measures could be calculated, and we don't have any data to show for any of those. The other three measures, however, we do have some information. So one of those is the improving at-risk K-3 readers. So this is data that pertains to our third grade reading guarantee. Again, our district grade and all of our school grades are going to be not rated because we didn't have kind of that end game of how our third graders actually performed on the state test, but we did have 100% of our students that were promoted to the fourth grade. One of the things that was said in the spring is that students essentially were not going to be retained because of the third grade guarantee because that high stakes test didn't exist and the remote learning that happened in the spring. That has also continued to this year. So in the 2020-2021 school year, no student will be retained based on a high stakes test. So as long as the teachers and principals have data to support that the student is performing at the level that they need to, they will be promoted to the fourth grade. We are continuing to administer the Ames Web Plus diagnostic, so we are still identifying students who are not on track in their reading and creating the reading improvement monitoring plans and providing the appropriate interventions for those students. Graduation rate is data that we do have because this is actually looking at the class of 2018 and 2019. So our district four-year graduation rate was 98.3%, and then our five-year graduation rate was 99.3%. And then you can see the individual schools' graduation rates as well in the table below. Obviously, Berlin still does not have any data as their first graduating class was in 2020. And then the other measure that we were able to get, because we are looking at past year's graduating class, is our Prepared for Success measure. Again, not rated, but our district grade was an 86.3%, which was an increase by 1% from our last year's data. And all of our buildings, as you can see their percentages as well, they increased by anywhere between 0.4 and 1.5%. So we saw a trend up in that Prepared for Success measure. And then the last thing, before I can answer any questions, is we want to talk about what we know as far as the state testing for this school year. There's been a lot of talk about potential cancellation and what that might look like. Currently, we are planning on testing as scheduled. The first test administration would be at the end of October for our fall third grade reading. There has been a Senate bill that has been introduced that they're proposing to eliminate state testing, report cards, and addressing how that would impact graduation. So we know that that's out there, but right now, nothing has been passed, so we are proceeding to make plans for both our hybrid students as well as our CDL students to have those opportunities to take those state tests. And obviously, we'll continue to monitor that very closely to see kind of where all of that goes.
It's not going anywhere.
Well, would the state test be proctored if you're?
They have to be proctored.
Kids do have to proctor.
Yeah, so ODE has said that right now there's no way to give those in a remote manner.
Right.
Right.
So we would have to find a way to bring those students in and have those tests proctored in person for all of our students who are choosing CDL right now.
But the bill's sitting in the Senate, and they only have one or two more days, work days even in October. So, and then it would have to go through the House.
So all those CDL kids would conceivably opt out and count as
I don't know, yeah.
passed.
Well, and for third grade, they have two opportunities. So they have the fall opportunity, which is kind of their first try at it, but they also have the potential spring opportunity. So they wouldn't necessarily count against us if they do take it in the spring.
In the fall is the Terra Nova?
We do Terra Nova in February, and so that's a district
Yeah, this is
given
third grade.
test, but the Ohio State test for the fall is just the third
third
grade.
grade.
ELA.
Is it different than the spring one, or is?
No, it's the same,
Oh, okay.
yeah. Are there any questions?
I do have one more question.
Mhm.
So they've revamped, the report card a few times, and it's hit us hard as we didn't qualify or have enough things to meet indicators. So our report card grade is finally more reflective of our performance now.
Mhm.
Do you think this would negatively impact the grade again, or?
I don't think that it should. We're just essentially going to be missing a year of data, but the new report card, whenever we have the data to calculate those measures, will just be kind of essentially based on the year's data that we have, with the exception of the progress grade. So that will be, I think, the most interesting measure because that uses past data as well as the current achievement data.
I mean, before
Right.
the pandemic hit, there was talk about revamping the entire state
Again.
report card again.
Yeah.
I know.
Some people want it to be more of a dashboard with more data reported and less gradings and rankings, so I'm sure that conversation will continue as well.
Anybody else have any questions?
Some of you guys are on the board long enough to remember when before the state had an overall letter grade, Dr. Lucas self-proclaimed for us a letter grade of an A because of what our individual indicators were. So since, our
Are you
last
right?
grade was an A, it's just continuing
It's
until
just-
we get a
yeah,
new
we're the
grade. We had an
same.
A.
Yep.
So
Well, someone
we're
tells you
keep-
different, right?
I'm proclaiming we still have an A.
We don't have a grade to replace it, so.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Stealing one from Dr. Lucas's playbook.
Anyone else have any questions?
That was good.
Thank you, Jeanette, for
Okay,
joining us
welcome.
tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, so that brings me to my president's report, which will be brief.
He just-
Hold your applause, because one of the things I was going to talk about was that Julie and I did attend the State of the Schools, and, the common theme from the superintendents was shortage. Shortage of substitutes. But I would like to remind our district how fortunate we are, because other districts said they ordered hotspots, and they're in more rural areas in May and still don't have them. So I feel very fortunate. We are where we are, and we have the resources that we do, and to hear that broke my heart for some of those kids that are in, out in the country. The other thing I was going to report, I think Ms. Kenny will appreciate this. Last week, I testified, was it last week? I believe it was, for House Bill 436. That is a mandated dyslexia screening law. And it's made it through the House at a vote of, I think, 89-6. I testified before the Senate Education Committee. And I think the best takeaway from that was that Senator Brenner asked me where we thought the best place for a screener like this to live would be, and that was the KRA. And he's like, well, wouldn't it fit well into the KRA? And I said, yes, because I know that is an assessment that our kindergarten instructors perform, but it doesn't necessarily give them really meaningful data. They have to gather that outside of the KRA. So I thought you would appreciate hearing that, because we talked about it years back. Also, that same day, Senator Brenner did introduce a Senate bill that would make K through 5 literacy curriculum phonics-based, which we already do. So both of those things, I was happy to be down there and hear, and that Olentangy already has best practices in the area of literacy. And then I believe next week we have a facilities committee meeting date. And I think that's about it.
Yeah, they're starting to look at the projections of population.
Yes, I haven't heard the official how the pandemic has affected new builds. So hopefully we get some of that information coming our way.
I just have one thing from the Career Center.
Oh, please.
Just an update from the Career Center. We had our meeting Tuesday night, and our superintendent announced her retirement. So she'll be retiring at the end of this school year. So
Year or year?
school year.
Okay.
Yeah, she's going to stay with us. We will start the search for a new superintendent for the Career Center.
That's disappointing to hear. My son attends there.
I know.
Mr.
she's
O'Brien,
great.
so does your daughter, correct?
Madigan's there, yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
And they're going to full hybrid?
That's what they're discussing for, because right now, the lab classes are AB days, blue-green days. And so now we got to get the academic classes
It's
on a
October
hybrid.
5th.
So,
It is a challenge to manage between
It is.
A and B day here, and blue and green day there.
Yes.
I have to have a master calendar.
and between
photograph
all
it.
the Delaware County school
the
districts
schools.
plus Worthington and Westerville.
Yeah,
It's a daunting task.
So,
hard.
yeah.
You know, as for the new builds, I was in a meeting with, talked to Glenn Marsloff, the president of Delco Water, and he said water tap, the tap fees are not down. They're,
Really?
and the same with sewer, so they're sensing that a lot of it's still homes that were in the pipeline already. So they're not sure, you know, what next year's look like, but as of right now, the new builds, new home starts, new constructions.
Consistent, so it's
Solid.
spring builds that potentially would
Could
be
potentially.
changed. Okay, well, that's it for my president's report. Mr. Rafe, please join us for your superintendent's report.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Lori, for being here, and Jeanette and Todd, great job as always. So, do have some exciting announcement today was released that Tyler Run Elementary has officially been recognized as a National Blue
Yeah,
Ribbon School
just came out today.
for 2020. So yeah, that just came out today. So congratulations to Jennifer Mazza, who's been the principal of the school since it opened, all the way through. And just done a great job. So they are now our third elementary, and joining also Olentangy High School and Liberty High School as blue ribbon schools. I got to do these as long as I can. So, you know, I teased Todd about the quality profile for highlighting Orange Band, but it seems like every time we have an opportunity to highlight something, Orange Band comes up because all they do is great things in our community. So, and I'm sure Mrs. Hadfield knows well, is a very proud band parent from Orange High School. So they got out on September 11th and played tribute shows for first responders at the Orange Township Firehouse on September 11th. So thank you to Dr. Cox and all the band members for the continued great work, just making our community proud. So Monday, as Lori talked about, the bus drivers at the rodeo, we had our first of 3 professional development days on Monday the 21st. Our focus this year is on anti-racism and building a sense of belonging. And the staff survey, there were, I want to say, almost 1,400 surveys completed from staff. 89% found it valuable. I think the number they shared with me was 13 found it at the lower end of the scale of no value at all. So very proud of the team for the work they're doing with professional development this year. So, you know, the food service team has been doing a great job assembling and distributing meals to our hybrid kids who are at home for their virtual days and for the CDL students. So, as you see there, they've already assembled and distributed over 1,700 meals curbside. So, you know, just like when you go to a restaurant, you see a little curbside sign. We have our little Olentangy Food Service curbside sign. Julie, I'm making that up? Probably.
Sounds good.
Maybe.
Sounded good. Bethany, get on there. Oh, So just want to highlight here, Cheshire Elementary School, they do this every year, Start with Hello Week. Again, this is just one of the many, many, many activities that all of our buildings do to create that sense of belonging, create a welcoming environment, try to reduce bullying and harassment, any of those types of behavior. But, every building does something, and we're continually trying to find more and more and more ways to improve our culture of inclusion and connectedness. So Cheshire, great job with Start with Hello. This month beginning on September 15th, began Hispanic and Latinx Heritage Month. So we see there, we start highlighting some of the curriculum throughout many of the schools, informational boards, and just again, a small effort to highlight our efforts for diversity and inclusion. So, as you all know, we launched our COVID-19 dashboard a week ago? 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago. This is obviously, this data is always kind of a week old. As we found out, the state data is about 2 weeks old. So, we gave a refresher notification process to everybody. Tomorrow it will be updated again. Numbers are holding, I would say, steady, which is a good thing. We're, as I said before, we will have cases, and we know that. Our kids have been doing a fabulous job with masks and the staff, and so we're in the process of continuing to analyze what we're going to use as our metrics to decide whether or not we're going to change what our current model is. Obviously, you get contacted by community members wanting us to be in school 5 days a week. I get contacted by community members that's what we want also. We want to be back in school 5 days a week, as long as we can do it as safely as we possibly can. I also get a lot of emails from people who are perfectly happy in our hybrid model, feel safe, feel like they're being, that the education being provided is good for when they balance out what their safety concerns are. So, just like I said back in late July, early August, our numbers are what our numbers are because of what we're doing. The numbers are what they are because we're, on this hybrid model. We don't know what they would be when we bring everybody back. Whether or not we can, obviously, we can't do the same level of social distancing that we do with half the students in attendance. So, we'll have to decide as we still continue to work through additional PPE measures, other procedures to do as much social distancing, to have as many mitigation barriers in place. We'll have to have a lot more thought and communication on what that would look like if and when we bring everybody back to full-time school. So with that, Chris is going to quickly talk a little bit about the community survey that we launched.
All right, hello everyone. Yesterday we launched our thought exchange. As you know, the question we asked is, now that we've started the new school year, what is working and what areas do you need more support in, to our parents, our staff, our students. And so far in the first 24 hours that the thought exchange has been live, over 2,600 people have participated, shared over 2,500 thoughts, and over 78,000 ratings. So if you recall, people are invited to rate or star thoughts in the thought exchange as much as they would like. 14% of our certified staff have participated, 3% classified staff, 82% of our parents, and just 1% of our students thus far. So we'll be pushing this out.
82% of our parents?
Correct. 82% of the participants are parents.
Okay, okay. I was
Sorry.
gonna say, that
In one
any
day, that's-
pollster
yeah.
would hire you in a minute if you guys.
Yes, no, what I mean to say is that of our participants, those are the percentages. So 14% certified, 3% classified, 82%, and 1% students. So we'll be pushing that out on Schoology to our students tomorrow to get their engagement in that. Then of the groups that have, or have the folks that have participated, 44% have been representing the elementary buildings, 16% middle school, 27% high school, and 11% CDL, and just about 2% other. We're able to look at the thoughts by the amount that they were rated. So the top 5 thoughts we have as of right now are: kids are enjoying being back in the building with their teachers and peers. Thank you to all of the great bus drivers. I've been shocked by the lack of teacher support and public bashing on social media. We need to support our teachers. They are working so hard. I am proud to be a parent at Olentangy. I am very pleased with how the in-person days are going. So those are the top 5 thoughts as of today. There are, 6 more days of the thought exchange, so we'll be compiling the results and sharing them at the next board meeting. We are also able to look at the differences of people's opinions and thoughts in the thought exchange, and so when we look at the thoughts that are shared related to coming back 5 days a week, full-time in person, to remaining in the hybrid model, I'm sure you are not surprised to hear that we are pretty evenly split, 50-50, of those who have responded thus far. And so we'll continue to monitor that. But again, the purpose of this question was to find out what's working and in what ways can we provide more support. So we'll be looking at this question for those answers as well.
Can I ask about the reporting of the number of cases? Because there's.
The dashboard?
The dashboard, because
Yes.
there seems to be, what is reported in the media doesn't jive with the numbers. And is that because of reporting timing?
Well, I think not knowing specifically which media report.
Tonight, the media is reporting that we have 21 cases for our students, but yet on our dashboard, it's 11, but we don't change our dashboard until Friday, so.
Correct.
That's what I
So-
just had someone
Yes, the
text me
NBC4
that.
story is reporting cumulative cases
Cumulative
from the Ohio
cases.
Department of Health. We are reporting active cases currently from the Delaware General Health District and what we learn from Columbus and Franklin County of our students. So I can't really say what the Ohio Department of Health is using for their boundaries for our attendance area. But the big difference there is cumulative cases versus active cases. And tomorrow we will, again, report active cases as of tomorrow morning. And then we also will be adding a breakout
By
by
school.
building of combined active cases of students and staff per building.
Which I think is above and beyond what's required, because if you go
Correct.
to the state site, they just report it by district. And the only schools that report are the private schools who want to report. Those are the individual schools. So I think we're going above and beyond the call.
The order actually says simply encouraged to have a dashboard sharing information, so having a dashboard is not required, and the amount that we're reporting is also not required.
Do we not want to report cumulative?
Pardon?
Do we not want to report cumulative cases?
Well,
I think we have tried to stick with active cases
Yes.
because that seems to be a more accurate number, moment to moment. As cumulative cases, I think, they come on, they come
I
off.
mean, it's either or, but you can report both.
We certainly can do that. We have tried to understand what we're getting from the health district daily, and determine what is the best information to share based on the information we're receiving.
Can I circle back around to the survey?
Yes.
So how would parents access that? Did you send it out in a community message, or is it?
We sent them a link in a standalone message yesterday to both parents and staff, and then we'll send students versus Schoology. And then today we sent the link again when we sent our COVID update on how we'll be
Okay, I
communicating.
have not checked my personal email today, so I'm sure it's
Yes,
there,
so-
and it's open for 6 more days,
It's
correct?
up until the 30th.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Would you repeat, I think it was the second one of those 5. I didn't quite catch the part about the elementary teachers, if I heard that correct. Would you repeat that?
Of the participants,
Yes.
44% of elementary parents or staff have participated.
No, I'm sorry.
44% of our participants have been from elementary.
No, the 5 biggest reactions. I think it was the second one. Some of
Was
us,
the third was shocked by the lack of support?
yes.
The teachers.
Yes, I've been shocked by the lack of teacher support and public bashing on social media. We need to support our teachers.
Okay.
They are working so hard.
Didn't quite catch it the first time.
I think that's the focus of social media though nowadays.
Well, and I can say
Unfortunately.
that teachers are working harder than ever. I had my first online IEP meeting today. You could see the fatigue on the faces because they go home, they just have to draw a line in the sand and go to sleep. I mean, because the emails supporting the students that are hybrid.
Constant.
Yeah, it's pretty constant. So I applaud them and wish that were not the case. Thank you.
Thanks,
You know,
Krista.
And the way Thought Exchange works is that, just to make sure everybody's completely aware, is that we pose, just a simple question that you have a thought or reaction about, and again, the thought or reaction could have no, because the question is, what's going well, what's working? Well, somebody just puts in there, I want everybody back 5 days. Well, so then you have an opportunity to rate that thought. If you agree with the thought, you give it a 5. If you don't agree with that thought, you give it a 1. And then the more people that rate your thought, the top thought bubbles to the top, or the highest scoring average thought bubbles to the top. So that's how we're kind of breaking some of these, able to see some of these trends in it going. And it's just really a free flow of thought as opposed to a simple survey that,
Yeah.
do you want this or do you want that? Instead of trying to really get what people really want. We're trying to, again, use this feedback as a data point. We're tracking student attendance rate, staff attendance rate, nursing visits, some other indicators and metrics. We've been discussing exactly all the different types of things that'll give us a clear picture that can inform whether or not we want to change to a different model. As most of you already know, Delaware County is now back to red. Well, in my meeting with the health district today, they do not agree with that ranking or assessment because it's based off of data that's 2 weeks old. So if we look at cumulative cases, that's still old data. And, again, a lot has changed since we've done that. I think it gives us another piece of the picture where that is going, or how much do we really have in our district. But, you got a district like Big Walnut that's been back in school 5 days, and they still have no cases were being reported in their attendance area or in their district. We were trying to really make a determination about what it is that's going to inform us, but there's still, I think it's some soft data of what are simply people's comfort levels, because I don't know that we really know of, what people want. There's times that they say what they want on social media, and then maybe that changes also. I had somebody send me a really nice, friendly email accusing me of us not being transparent, hiding data, and then we're just going to use this silly tool to cherry pick the data and create the answer we want. Thank you. That's not, as you know, that's not what we do. We're going to try to make the best informed decision with the information we have, and this isn't a popularity contest or a poll to decide. I don't put out a popularity contest or a poll to decide whether or not we're having a snow day. That's not how we are deciding on this model. So we're going to continue to do what we're doing and support our students and staff and families, and continue to try to have as successful a school year as we can under these crazy conditions.
I also think that people hear the echo chamber of their bubble. And so, we get emails that say, well, everyone I talk to wants to go back. And then we get the other email that says, all of my friends think hybrid is great, or CDL is great. And so they're just hearing the echoes of their bubble. And that's what you have to weigh, because we're hearing all of it,
Well-
and they're only hearing their bubble. Not
And-
just the PAL bubble, but everybody's bubble.
Well, and that's what we're carrying around. our leadership team, I know you as a board, you're carrying that around with you all the time. And again, we want everybody to be happy, and we want to give everybody everything they want, but, you know, this is one of those examples where there are clearly people that want different things because of what they believe to be true about this pandemic. But, you know, go back to Delaware County. We went to red in Delaware County because our number of cases increased for 5 consecutive days from September 7th to September. Number of new cases increased from over 5 days. It went from 17 new cases per day to about 18 to 20 to about 30 new cases. But then over the next 2 weeks, it fell down. Right now, we're at 11. But because the state's reporting is 2 weeks old, that gave us the fourth indicator that pushed us to red. Because Franklin County's still at yellow right now, or orange. Orange. So, you know, but for the people who want to, so again, that's why we're not using one data point to make our determination of what our model is. And but for the people who want that, that just fuels the debate about whether or not we should stay in hybrid or go fully remote. Oh my God, we're red, we should be fully remote. And then when you talk about what the data really indicates, so that just fuels the passion for the people who want us to be in full time. And that's really the difficulty. That's why we're getting our data. What's it look like for Olentangy? Our kids, our staff, and again, we need to find our staff comfort level. We got them comfortable in the hybrid. We've been in 4 weeks. This is week 5. So we're.
Well, they also have to realize that if and when we do bring everybody back, that spacing goes away.
Mm-hmm. But if 2 people are wearing, according to the health district, two people wearing a mask is 2 layers of mitigation. You don't need 6 feet of social distancing. The health district says as long as people are wearing their masks, you don't need 6 feet of social distancing.
I would agree, we do grocery shop. And we
Yeah.
seem to
So-
stay healthy. So-
Yes, but for those people who are arguing, it says 6 feet of distance.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you don't
Again, that's
get
without
that.
masks, and a lot of that was before we had the mask mandate, and we didn't know how the kids would do with the mask or the staff would do with the mask, and we found that that's working pretty well.
If we were to go back and lose that 6-foot barrier, and it was 3 or 2, whatever it may be, but students are wearing masks,
Right.
there's the double barrier, does that change the reporting mechanism? Because before it was like within 6 feet, 15 minutes,
Well, that's,
would that be a
those are,
game
that's
changer?
what I need is an assurance from the, because if the contact tracing confirmation, if
Right.
it's gonna make, if the minute we have one kid and you know, they're not within 6 feet, we're closing down a whole class or a building. And what we haven't, again, what they're not seeing is this community spread within the schools. So the contacts are happening outside of the schools. At least, you know, again, as we're analyzing the data from all of our schools in Delaware County. Obviously, Big Walnut hasn't had a problem because they haven't had a case. But with our cases, they're not saying they're getting contacted or contacting other people who are then subsequently getting sick. It's that first layer of contact or even a second layer of contact. So I had contact with you, and then you went and had contact with Mrs. Feasel. Well, it really started with me. So again, it just takes a little time to get that data in for us. So again, we're going to keep hoping for patience. My email inbox
It's full.
disagrees. It's great. So just there's some action items. Well, this is Alex's Assessment for Learning and Knowledge Spaces. This is a program we've used elementary and middle school. We're bringing it up to the high school level. It's found it to be very helpful in supporting our high school math students and staff. You see there your resolution for a meta so that we can go into the cooperative purchases of school buses. This hopefully is our last purchase of PPE. But this is the additional PPE necessary for us to be fully prepared to come back to school full-time. Fixed PPE, we'll still have disposable PPE we'll be buying. Thank you, Mr. Meyer.
Legal disclaimer.
It's like a puppet.
Well, the difference between, you know, a fixed shield versus cleaning materials and things
Yeah.
like that.
And then, as you do every year,
you have, we have per policy, the approval of our bus routes and stops. So, and then our next meeting is October 8th, and then we have our next scheduled day, CODA Day, which is a non-school day. Not a professional development day, it's just not one of our 170-some days we have scheduled, so. Questions? Already kind of shot through that.
Good, good.
I have one about our CODA day. As our professional development day, I received an email saying that we started school late, so why are we following through with this day? But that is a negotiated item that's set up months in advance. That would be the same for CODA as well.
CODA is just not we can schedule when Mr. Wright comes up and gives that great presentation about the calendar, we have to have a certain number of days scheduled from whenever we decide to start to whenever we decide to end. And what that's why we always try to manipulate the end of first semester before winter break. How long's winter break going to be? When are we going to come back? When spring break fit in there? So, we have 185 contractual days for the teachers. There's so many scheduled work days where they're not in front of kids. There's 3 professional development days where they're not in front of kids, and we are like 173 days with kids. But CODA Day is just a non-day. It's just not.
We've had it since I was in
Yeah, it's
school.
normally a high travel weekend.
Yeah.
Yes, we always went to the pumpkin show.
Yes.
Whatever, it's just been one of those days. Some districts do have it as a work day, and when I was actually in the classroom 20-some years ago, we had to do professional development on that day. But back in the day, that was like the only scheduled professional
Right.
development day for teachers in the entire year. So like the Central Ohio Teachers Association Day in Northeast Ohio has the same kind of, and it's always kind of scheduled in that mid-November range.
In our last professional development, we try to schedule them earlier in the year so that our students can benefit from the professional
Yeah, so our 3
development
PD
throughout the
days
year.
are what we've always, the email you got regarding the fair day, we always tried to have one in that traditional fair week, and it just, once we moved away from being we used to give kids a day off for fair
Yeah,
because
for
they
the fair.
showed at the fair, and we moved away from that, obviously, as a district, but we've kind of kept that traditional day in our calendar. The day after Thanksgiving is our second PD day, and we've scheduled those. Again, we've tried to schedule them around what were traditionally low attendance days for kids because of travel.
Good point.
And then the third one is in February,
February.
around President's,
Yeah.
Friday before President's Weekend.
Oh,
Because again,
I will reiterate, Delaware City Schools has Thursday and Friday off for Jug Day.
Right, but
again-
they get a lot of
But-
congestion.
but those are
with traffic
just
on
days
normal
they
days.
schedule off as non-days,
Right.
they're just non-days, so they have the same number of days they've got to get scheduled in. And it all depends on when we want to start and when we want to end. And if we want to end earlier, we shorten winter break, don't take spring break, and end earlier. So, or we can end later and space it out. We're here anyway, right?
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions?
Sound good.
Comments? Okay. Well, Mrs. Hatfield, will you please present your treasurer's report?
It's a nice mask break up here.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So thank you for having the opportunity to give you a quick update. I tried to make my slides a little less boring, so bear with me. But one of the components that we were discussing tonight, of course, was the state report card. And as Jeanette spoke to, all of our ratings are not rated. The one component that is within the report card is financial data. And so we were taking a look at the financial data and trying to correlate it to other reporting that we have through the Ohio Department of Education, more specifically the CUP report or the district profile report. That's a report that we use in our financial reporting in our 5-year forecast. We use it for some statistical data in our CAFR. So we were trying to make the two line up, and some questions came about as to why they don't line up.
So the financial data within the report card talks about our cost per pupil. It also talks about the percentages of our revenue and where they come from. And quite honestly, we couldn't pinpoint exactly why they don't match up identically. What we did do is I pulled some 2019 report card data to try to match that up. Because when you go to the 2020 report card and you try to get the Excel download of the information, it's not available. It's just posted in aggregate and you can't get into the why behind the numbers that are listed. So what we did discover is that there is a weighted, or that the report card uses a weighted average daily membership versus the CUP report, which uses an FTE or an average daily membership. So the report card's number of students is higher, and therefore the cost per pupil is lower because the denominator's bigger than on the CUP report. There wasn't any detailed information for me to determine why one theology versus the other. We're assuming that the data is coming from different departments within the Ohio Department of Education, and they just have different observations and why they use those metric
But on the
points.
cost per pupil on the report card, it shows we're higher than the state's average, but in the district profile, we're lower on cost per pupil than the state's average. So that doesn't even make any sense.
No, it doesn't. And the cost per pupil is around $9,800. And on our last CUP report, we were about 11,600. So again, not really sure where the
Yeah.
differences lie. We can tell that our comparison group is for enrollment, 10,000 or more. We do have the same comparable group as we did last year, so that did not change for us. But again, just not a lot of detail to really help us understand the differences. The report card guide is available for 2020 and 2019. But again, it just references that federal funding was part of the calculation, and that's really all it says. So I apologize, but we just don't have enough information to explain those differences. And we'll probably continue to use, of course, the CUP report. It's usually available in January or February for the prior fiscal year. So we'll get into that information as it becomes available and updated for FY20. I had to go a little tongue-in-cheek here on some of the bills, just because I'm sure everybody's tired of seeing the data tables that we generally throw up on slides. But wanted to put some information out in the community about House Bill 606 and House Bill 164, Section 19. These two particular bills are of relief for Olentangy and most school districts, but House Bill 606 in particular because it deals with the civil immunity provided to school districts and other entities for being eligible or being held liable in a lawsuit from exposure, transmission, or contraction of COVID-19, as long as they are not showing reckless intention or willful misconduct. I believe our teams have been very diligent about masks, PPEs, and getting our schools set up and ready to go with as many precautions as we can, as well as our transportation department. So this, in essence, is protecting us from that lawsuit. It's a great financial risk assessment to be mindful of. With House Bill 164, Section 19, this is the state funding that we were looking for and whether or not we would receive our $2 million of restored state funding. As you may remember from our June 30th report, at the very last minute, the state came through with House Bill 164 and said, okay, we've taken away $3 million of your funding due to budget cuts. We're going to give you about $2 million back before you close. And this Section 19 gives us that same $2 million for fiscal year 2021. The interesting component to this is that it does not show up on the SFPR report. So that's the general overall funding report you can find on ODE's website for any school district in the state. But where you will find it is in the foundation report, which is almost like our monthly receipt of state funds. it's considered an adjustment, and it shows up at the bottom of the page as a payment to us. So it is there, it's notated as House Bill 164, Section 19, and there's some other random coding that I won't even get into, but it is there, and it shows up on the foundation summary reports. So we're happy to have that confirmed for this fiscal year. We have several action items that are on the agenda for approval this evening. We have our August financials. We still are waiting or awaiting our final settlement for our real estate tax collections. We believe that we should have that by the end of next week. We were anticipating that to be September. Depending on the timing of the transmission of those funds, it could technically be October. So it may or may not post on the September financials. We will keep the board updated as we receive those transmission reports. And of course, the House Bill 164, Section 19 payments show that our state funding is higher than anticipated because we were not sure when we did the May forecast whether or not that would apply to FY 21 or not. So we will update that for our fall forecast. We continue to see variances in our expenditures and in some of our vendor deliveries because of the monthly billing continues to be delayed. We still have some open purchase orders, and billing is just taking longer to actually be issued from some of our vendors. And so we think at some point it might get caught up. We know a lot of industries are still working from home, and that's creating a lag as well. And then the Ohio Department of Education has released the $1 million in federal coronavirus relief funds. And that is impacting the forecast because it is allowing us to book those directly to that fund rather than the general fund or the forecast. And right now, we're just at approximately $514,000 for the month of August, fiscal year to date, of what we have spent out of those funds. So we'll be able to have an update for you on that as we approve the September financials and have that actual dollar amount updated for you. Our amended appropriation, the board meeting minutes, are general information that we bring forward to make sure that we are in compliance with Ohio Revised Code. And with our donations, we would like to make sure that we thank all of our volunteers, especially during this pandemic and adjusting to what expectations are. We know our parents are traditionally very involved with coming into the buildings and being part of the classrooms, and we appreciate their patience as we work through this. But we also know that they're volunteering behind the scenes and helping our students feel that community strength. So we appreciate that. We also have donations from Liberty High School Athletic Boosters and Orange Athletic Boosters. They are each donating just over $2,500 for additional field hockey coach at Liberty and an additional assistant football coach at Orange. So we want to thank them for that. And then to thank Teresa Sherman and Jennifer Bishop for donating a Roland cam and cutter stand to the Entrepreneurs Business Club. So thank you again for those donations. We really appreciate the continued support of our community. With that, I will take any questions you might have. And my one picture didn't do it, huh?
When's the Finance and Audit Committee? I know it's coming up.
Oh, yes, thank you. The Finance and Audit Committee is meeting October 12th at 6:30. We plan to have the committee in person in the Berlin room here in this conference room, and then allow public participation by having community members email us. We'll send them a link where they can view the meeting and use the chat feature to give us any questions throughout the conversations of the evening as they so choose. So we will be reviewing the October forecast, looking at, again, where we are fiscal year to date, any assumptions that need to be changed, and also looking at markets, trends, and developments, and trying to make sure that we are applying those proficiently to the 5-year forecast. You'll find that the 2020 fiscal year will become an actual year of expenditures on this forecast, and fiscal year 2025 will come on board. So we'll have a new set of forecasted numbers in that regard. Yes.
For those of us board members who aren't on the finance committee, since we're going to broadcast it out, can we watch? Is that legal? Or is that against Ohio Sunshine Law? We won't, like, if we wanted to watch, we wouldn't comment.
Right, we could all view it.
I
Can
think
we all
viewing
view
it is
it?
not the problem, it's having a conversation and
Right.
making plans that should be done in a public
Yeah.
board meeting is the issue that we want to be mindful of. So we can certainly, share that link if you would like to
Yeah.
watch the conversation.
that
and-
be on
Well,
the
again, this isn't a public meeting.
Well, yeah, but we've never even been able to come, because when you're in a public meeting, it's been my understanding, I can't even come in and, like, come in.
Correct, you don't usually want more than 2 board
Yeah.
members present.
But if I'm just
Be under
viewing
the
it-
treasurer's page, or?
The public notice was sent out via the normal distribution channels, which is usually in the paper. But the address to email us is treasury@olsd.us. And we can share the link from there, but I can certainly just share the link with all of the board members, and you can choose to hop on and listen in if you'd
Observe
like.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Are there any other questions?
I'll just point out, remember years ago when Stacy was in China, she could listen in, she just couldn't participate
Yeah, but
because she
they've,
was remote.
right, but they've changed the rules for COVID. And so now you're allowed to
Oh.
be remote and take votes and discuss stuff. But I want to say, if we're just on the meeting, just watching, and we're not commenting, are we allowed to do that?
I think so, not an attorney. Why don't-
Because it's not an official board meeting, it's a committee meeting.
True, but I just think it's a smart move to not
Yeah.
have a dialogue.
And
Oh, that's true.
Dave and Kevin,
We have to
you're
do
up.
that regardless. I'm just asking if I can watch. That's all I want to do.
Is it recorded?
We are not anticipating to record it unless we have some issue where the connectivity doesn't work with the invitations for the public members. We don't generally live stream any other meetings that are committee meetings to the Board of Education. We've been live streaming the board meetings only. You're welcome.
Okay. Mr. Rafe? Oh, did you have something to say? Oh, okay.
jumping ahead.
Mr. Rafe, would you please present?
Yep,
No,
we need to go
public
back a little bit.
Oh, I am jumping ahead.
Yes, public
That's why
participation
she's
I made
first.
the
looking
wrong
at you. Wait a
X's on
minute.
my paper. I apologize. And since you're here, I'm assuming that you do have some public participation for us this evening.
I do.
You do? Okay, would you please read it to us?
This is from Deneen Angela Snyder, 752 North State Street, Suite 158, Westerville, Ohio. How is the Olentangy Local School District configured to coordinate with metropolitan philanthropy and business infrastructures of Columbus, Ohio, and surrounding areas in 2020? That is it.
Oh,
I have
know what
emailed
that means.
Deneen.
I don't either.
I don't understand it, but that was nice.
I have emailed Deneen to ask
Okay.
for clarification so that we can help answer her question and explain that public participation doesn't have a response necessarily, but she did not answer my email, so I'm sharing the
There you
public
go.
participation.
Thank you.
Very much.
Okay, well, I'm back on the agenda here. Mrs. Hatfield, would you please present your treasurer action items?
Yes, please. I would like to present treasurer action items A through D for approval, please.
May I have a motion?
I'll move.
Thank you.
Second,
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiesel,
yes.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes,
Dr. Weiss,
Yes.
and Mrs. Patrick.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Rafe, would you now present the superintendent action items?
Yes, ma'am, I'd like to present superintendent action items A through H for approval.
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Fiesel,
Yes.
Dr. Weiss,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes,
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
and Mrs. Patrick.
Yes.
Thank you.
Our next meeting, as Mr. Rafe indicated, will be on November the 8th. here.
October.
October. Well, I can't keep things
well, maybe
in
November.
order right now. I apologize.
Everything's a little goofy.
I was actually putting our book study for November and December on my calendar, so I
Oh.
moved, yes. So, our next meeting is October 8th at 6:30 PM here, as always, and I will now take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. Do you have a second?
second.
Thank
Make
you,
it up for
Mr.
last
King.
year.
Please call the roll.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
Mr. King.
Yes.
Mrs. Fiesel,
Yes.
Dr. Weiss,
Yes.
and Mrs. Patrick.
Yes, we are
Thank you.
adjourned.
Y'all made me nervous.